Welcome kindreds, it's Jessica the Story Witch, and I've got a feeling this video might be a little bit of a rant, so I hope you're gonna bear with me. It is the video for you in the A to Z of Modern Witchcraft series that I'm making here on my channel, and U is for universe, and I'm going to talk about basically, I suppose, the law of attraction and how I feel that works or doesn't. I didn't really have a set plan for you, and then I was like just flicking my eyes over some of my decks, and I bought that Gabriella Bernstein deck, that the universe has your back. And I didn't buy it first of all when it first came out because I was like, oh, that is so kind of just a bit cheesy, I suppose, a bit trendy for me, really, a bit hipster for me. But I was seeing it popping up lots and lots of places, and eventually I was like, you know, it was quite cheap. I think it was like £10 or something, and I thought I'm just going to get it. I'd received a couple of cards from it in a couple of subscription boxes that I was having and things like that, and I was like, don't, you know, get your head out your arse and just get it. You know, lots of people think that it's really great. But one of the reasons why that deck kind of bugged me a little bit in the first place is this whole idea of the universe having your back. And I understand the idea, you know, it's that we are all here, we've all kind of descended from the same stuff, we are all stardust, you know, we are all, everything that is in this universe has been in this universe from the very, very beginning, you know, from that bang. Everything is already in existence, it's already here. And that is, I mean, that's mind-blowing in itself, you know, the whole kind of idea of it, the whole universe, just like nothing is ever created, it's all been here forever, you know, so everything's just kind of recycled and brought around again, even though, you know, the universe is supposedly expanding, and now kind of scientists now we've got different theories about how there's going to be like sort of more dense parts and more less dense parts, and so actually it's probably more accurate to talk about universes rather than universe, because perhaps the part that we are in is only in existence because we're kind of observing it. Because, you know, we are observing the bit that we're in and thinking it's the universe because we're here observing it, whereas there might be other places with other possibilities where the condition for human life never came about, and so it's not there. This is getting a little bit I don't want to be getting into kind of like astrophysics, really. I love it, I love reading about it, but I'm not a physicist, you know. I can't, my brain doesn't fully understand those concepts, although I feel like my heart understands them, you know. I suppose the best kind of way I have of understanding that whole idea of there being like multiple universes is if you've read Philip Pullman's The Subtle Knife, which is part of the trilogy, the Dark Materials trilogy. The name just flicked out my head then. In The Subtle Knife, you know, they're able to use the knife to open and then you have to close, you know, the doorways between the different worlds, and there's parallel universes you know, where there are people, and where there's in some of the universes there's whole different species because different things happened, and so things kind of kicked off in a different way, and so the evolution process was quite different from the evolution process that we have here on Earth. Anyway, I don't want to be like taking away any of the magic of that, because I totally vibe with that. I totally love it. I love that we are stardust. I love that we're everything that is here, and we're expanding as well. That feels so wonderful, you know. And I feel like the universe is a expansive force, and I also feel like there is an organizational force here, and an organizational force that enjoys pattern, and an organizational force that enjoys beauty. And so I feel like that force does like to kind of bring things together and maybe push things apart and arrange things. And so when people are like saying, oh yeah, I put that out to the universe and then they got what they want, you know, I do believe that. I do believe that you can make things happen by resonating with it and kind of attracting it to you. You know, the same way, I mean, that's why we get the whole concept of, you know, it's so new agey to say resonate. I know, I say it. But, you know, like if you bang a tuning fork, stick it on a cello, for example. I used to play the cello, so that is why that came into my head. So you'd bang the tuning fork, stick it on the cello, and even though you're not touching it, any strings that are tuned to the same pitch as that tuning fork will resonate, they'll vibrate, because they're on the same wavelength as the tuning fork. So I mean, that's amazing. That's magic. You're making something happen without touching it. You know, you're using that resonance to make that also resonate. And I believe that also happens on a kind of metaphysical level. You know, we can, if we resonate a certain way, we can make things happen on a different plane, which then can affect things on our physical plane. And I know like some people will say that is utter bullshit, but I believe it to be true, and I've seen that it is true, and perhaps I've seen it is true because I believe it is true. Okay, you know, that is a bit of a circular argument, but the universe does not have my back. The universe, or source, or whatever you want to, you know, if you have a deity, then perhaps you are seeing it as an aspect of deity. I don't really see deity like that. I see the universe as being a kind of amorphous, kind of, like I said, a kind of organizing, pattern making thing, but not a personified thing in any way at all. You know, I see deity as being a more thought forms that are created by humans, and that kind of, much as Terry Pratchett talks about them, especially in Small Gods. I remember reading that and being like, that is exactly what I believe. You know, it's we give deity power. If you kind of feed things to a thought form, it makes it into an actual thing, and that is, I feel like that deity is created by humans. So, well, human deity, well, and I suppose, and some animal deities we create as well. But yeah, it's a created thing, I believe. It's, you know, I think, what is this video going to be like? Is it going to be all like esoteric stuff? Perhaps it will, I don't know. But yeah, for me, the universe does not have my back, because the universe doesn't care. Not, you know, not like in a bad way, but just because it's like saying nature has my back, you know, or nature is good. Those things don't go together, you know. It's like kids will see sometimes, you know, like if you're watching a nature program and the lion will like kill another animal, and they'll be like, oh, that animal's bad, you know, the lion is bad for killing that other animal. But of course it's not, you know, it's just it's being a lion, you know. And so people can sometimes see nature in that same way as the universe, as being this kind of benevolent force. And it's not a benevolent force, it's just it's a non-anything. It doesn't, we kind of assign human emotions to the universe, or we assign human emotions to nature, when it's a force. It's, you know, it's like saying it the same as to gravity, you know, like, oh, well, you know, that gravity was really good then, you know. That's ridiculous, because it's not a personified thing. Nature is not a personified thing. The universe is not a personified thing, in my opinion. Obviously, if you believe especially if you believe like in a monotheistic God who has created the universe, and you believe that somebody is kind of controlling it, or at least has a kind of vested interest in it. And I don't believe that. I believe that it's just, It organises and allows those resonances, but it's not watching out for you, which might feel a bit sad. I prefer it that way. I prefer that I can be both insignificant if I want to, you know, being so kind of tiny and kind of irrelevant in the grand scheme of things is comforting to me. But if it's not comforting, you can create your own meaning by, you know, by creating deity if you want to, by creating the concept of deity, or buying into an already existing concept of deity, or through creating connections with spirit, you know. And I do believe there is spirit world here. I don't necessarily know all the time what it is that spirit is, or spirits are, but there's definitely more kind of energetic beings in this world than just the ones that move around that we can see with these eyes. So yeah, that is why I don't believe the universe has your back. And it's also why that whole law of attraction thing bugs me. And it's not just that, because the law of attraction is annoying because on lots of aspects it's really true, because it talks about that how, like, if you resonate in a certain way, like I was talking about earlier on, that brings those things towards you, because the universe likes things to be like, see, I'm using words as if it's a thing, you know, just because that's how things work. It's a force. That's just how it goes. It doesn't like or dislike anything. But law of attraction sets itself up as being like, you can create these things happening in your life, which I believe you can. And I believe magic sort of works on a similar way, because we are doing things on a kind of physical plane to affect things on a metaphysical plane in the same way. But law of attraction has become more of a thing to make people feel shit, I think, in lots of ways. Like when you see the kind of the gurus who talk about the law of attraction and how the universe has your back and The Secret and things like that, very often they are quite people in a position of quite a lot of privilege, and they can self-fulfill that prophecy, you know. They are in a position to attract these things, you know. They are in a position to see what they believe to happen. And they will say that it's equal. The law of attraction is completely equal. Anyone, any being can make that happen. But I don't believe that's necessarily true, because the level of belief of the person who is doing the attracting makes a difference. And like if you are following a kind of law of attraction path and trying to manifest things according to the principles of the law of attraction, if you don't get what you want, if things don't happen as you wanted them to, then it'll be like, well, that's because you're doing it wrong, you're a bad attractor, or you are attracting the bad things, you know. And how is that helpful? You know, it's the most perfect circular argument you can get. It's like, the law of attraction is great and wonderful, and if you say, oh, but it didn't work for me, they'll be like, it works for everyone. You'll say, but it didn't work for me, and they'll say, well, that's because you did it wrong. And, you know, that is just such bullshit, and it's so frustrating. I remember seeing during the Tarathon as well, I know Jeff was talking about how law of attraction is really amazing and really powerful, and a couple of people in the chat were bringing up the fact that, what about like systemic oppression? What about people who are living in war-torn countries where perhaps they're being raped on a regular basis, or, you know, they don't have their basic, you know, if you're talking about like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, people need water, they need food, they need a roof over their heads or somewhere safe. They need to feel safe. And only once those kind of basic needs are met can they then even turn their thoughts to a more spiritual place to be, because it's a very rare person who can think about the kind of metaphysical things when they're starving or thirsty, or their children have not got anywhere to be, if their children are unsafe, you know, or they are unsafe. And by saying the law of attraction works for everyone and systemic oppression is irrelevant to that, I think that is a very bigoted and short-sighted way of shifting the blame, of victim blaming, in the same way that we've seen for many years of like rape victims and stuff like that. It'd be like, oh, you attracted that. It's exactly that same thing, you know. It's like, well, what were you wearing? Why were you even there? It's got a very sinister, dark side to it. And that is why I don't buy into the law of attraction from a political point of view, I suppose, really. Because I care about people. And like they will say, the law of attraction gurus will say, well, we care about people. We want everyone to be able to attract these wonderful lives that they want. And yet, if you're taking somebody who is living in that situation of nothing, of not even having their basic needs met, and then you're then blaming them for not being able to attract the life, you know, you're basically saying you've got a shit life because you are shit at doing what you need to do. And that just doesn't work well for me. So I know that'll probably piss some people off, because the law of attraction is a big, big deal for lots of people, and people say, you know, it does work. But not for everyone, and and that is not their fault. It is not their fault. Systemic oppression is a thing, and the people who say otherwise are privileged and bigoted. And I think that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Warmest blessings, and I will see you very soon.